Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. On this channel we talk about all things fandom and we talk about it in a positive way. If that's something that appeals to you, you know you've come to the right place. We're so happy to have you here. And today we have to talk a little bit about the I Know What You Did Last Summer sequel. So let's jump right into it. Now, I Know What You Did Last Summer's sequel is scheduled to come out on July 18th. But ahead of this film, there have been some actors talking to different internet sites, different magazines, different things. They're going on the press tours, talking and giving their feelings. And Freddie Prinze Jr. had some very interesting stuff to say to Entertainment Weekly. So we're kind of going to break down what he said, and I'm going to give you my thoughts on it. Now, Freddie Prinze Jr. reprises his role as Ray Bronson in the upcoming reboot of I Know What You Did Last Summer. Ray is one of the few survivors from the original franchise, it tells us, and he recently told Entertainment Weekly how he approached his character nearly 30 years after he last played it. And what he says is that his character has gone through a lot. And he said, I don't know if he's dealt with it the way that a modern man deals with stuff. You know what I mean? He said, it's a guy from the 90s like myself. So I think he's probably bottled up a lot more feelings than we've talked about. But that's not all he had to say. We'll get back to that and we'll address that. But he also said some pretty interesting stuff about the content of the movie itself and how the original movie wouldn't hold up necessarily for kids today. And I think this is a really interesting topic. The article says, I Know What You Did Last Summer is one of the most iconic horror films from the 90s, but star Freddie Prinze Jr. admitted the film might be quaint to some modern fans of horror. Speaking to Fandango, Freddie Prinze Jr. said that the horror genre changes more rapidly because every generation finds a way to outscare the previous one. Horror evolves more quickly than any other type of movie, he said. Freddie Prinze Jr. also went on to say that kids today might watch the original I Know What You Did Last Summer from 1997 and laugh. He said he admired that the horror filmmakers are always thinking about what's next. He goes on to say, when I saw Phantasm the first time, it wasn't scary. I thought it was like, okay, I'm laughing at it. My buddy, who was 5 years older than me, was like, it's the scariest stuff I ever saw. He said, and for me, it was Freddy Krueger. And for the Scream generation, that's funny. All right, so let's talk about this whole thing where he may have gone through some stuff in those movies, because I'm hearing from a lot of people who are talking to me, a lot of people that have thoughts on it are saying that he didn't really seem upset, that he didn't really seem to be bothered. And you have to realize that that's a lot for a human being to go through if it was real life. Granted, they could just be spinning the tell like, hey, how do you feel that your character went through this? Do you feel that your character went through this well? Is he holding up some bottled stuff that's going to come to the surface during this movie? But I don't feel like he said that by mistake. I feel like that might actually be addressed in the movie, because what we do know is it took a lot for him to get there to begin with in I Still Know What You Did Last Summer, and it actually did take him a minute. And all the stuff he went through was sort of a little bit stressful. But then you have to wonder what happened afterwards, because this movie doesn't make it seem like him and Julie are together. So if him and Julie are not together, then he didn't even get the girl. And I look at it like, if he went through all that and he didn't get the girl, maybe he is a little bit depressed about that still. And then also, you have to look at, he's still in the same place. He's still in the same place, dealing with the same stuff, the same legends have been talked about for all this time. All this stuff probably weighs really heavily on his mind. I could totally see him saying that his character went through a lot of stuff. So I'm interested in finding out how this is shown on screen. Does he actually address the stuff he went through? Was he maybe accused of some of this? Is he still kind of a black sheep in this town? Is he looked down upon like he's that creepy guy? What is up with him in this movie? How do we know what this movie is going to entail for him? The movie comes out pretty soon here and we'll know the answers. But until then, I ponder why he would actually say this stuff about his character, unless maybe it is addressed in the script somehow. So that's kind of where I'm at with his statements. I don't find them to be anything other than the actor maybe talking about the character itself or giving his insight into how he thinks the character might have dealt with things afterwards. Because one thing they do teach you in drama class is to always sort of make up a history for your character if that character doesn't have one. And in between the films, if they don't really tell what happened to him, he of course has to know what happened to the character. So in his mind, he could have built up this entire scenario where his character just has some stuff he didn't deal with previously that he's still holding on to, and that could be how he plays the character. Although, like I said, I really do think it's something they're going to be addressing on screen. I don't see them making it a statement or him saying it as a statement in an interview if he's not going to have some reason to have said it. You know, some of that stuff actors kind of say and they keep to themselves. Other times they do say it, and you have to be careful because the internet kind of takes over and people have all these ideas. And some of those ideas are based on what the actor is saying. So I think in today's society, you do have to be a little bit more careful. And I'm thinking he's maybe been careful about what he's saying. And this could actually be addressed in the film. Now let's talk about this other part of what he said about how kids today would laugh at the original. Yes and no on this. There are some movies that actually do still hold up. They hold up quite well. There are movies that will actually stand the test of time. And then there are some movies that maybe don't hold up so well. And a lot of times it's the little things that kind of make the movie seem cheesier than it is. Like, I thoroughly love the Friday the 13th series. I never get tired of it. But when you look at the original Friday the 13th and the second one, there are things that hold up and there are things that don't. Anytime that a character is telling a joke, sometimes the joke they're telling doesn't stand up to the test of time, either due to new beliefs in what people believe now versus what you were able to get away with then, or the fact that sometimes what was funny then just kind of does seem childish now. There are little things like that in films from the 80s and early 70s and late 70s. You can go back through film history, and the ones that hold up don't really address time or don't address the year that they're in. A lot of times those movies will hold up a little bit better. Now that's not to say that that's the definitive rule, because Jaws still holds up to this day and people are still terrified of the movie Jaws. I don't know anybody who's watched Jaws and said I laughed all the way through it. It was just so cheesy and dumb. A lot of times if you have a movie that is scary, people respect that it's scary. They understand that that movie is scary for a reason, and those reasons are usually the things that are still kind of haunting. So, and I Know What You Did Last Summer, I know that some parts of it might not hold up, but the overall arc of this killer coming after them should still be something that scares people if it's done right. And I believe that the movie is done right, and I can watch movies from the 70s and 80s and I can laugh at some parts. But for the parts I laugh at, there are the parts that are still scary, the parts that still hold up. So I get him seeing Phantasm and being like, yeah, you know, this movie is kind of odd. That is an odd movie, but there are parts I feel were still scary. and still would kind of scare people today. However, that movie, I consider that movie to be a little bit more sci-fi than I consider it to be an outright horror movie. In a sci-fi horror movie, I feel it's especially true where things don't necessarily hold up, or you're just so busy looking at what is cool or what is wrong with the movie that sometimes you do judge it a little bit more harsh. In terms of I Know What You Did Last Summer, Scream, and all of those movies, I feel that there are still parts that hold up. If they weren't, then we wouldn't be getting a sequel like we are now. And I feel that him saying that was meant to be what he thought. He definitely thinks that way. But it doesn't hold true for everybody. It might hold true for some people. There are some horror fans that find a lot of the earlier horror movies really don't hold up at all. And there's some that can still see the parts that were scary in the original films that still could get the scares and jumps to this day. But that's where I'm going to leave it off to you guys. I want to know what you guys are thinking about this. Do you like the fact that he said that his character went through something? Do you think his character actually did go through something? Or do you think this is just something he said to allow himself to play the role better? Do you think this is the actor sort of making up this history, or do you think it will be addressed on screen? And what would you like? Would you like it to be addressed on screen, or do you feel it's not really all that important? And then he proposed a very interesting question. He said that modern horror fans would laugh at the early films, at earlier films. Each generation starts laughing at the previous generation's films. Do you agree with this statement? Or do you think it is a movie-to-movie sort of thing? What are your thoughts on the early 80s films, 90s films, whatever generation you're from? How do you feel about these movies? Do some of them still have moments that scare you? What are you guys thinking about that? I want to know. So make sure you are leaving me that comment in the comment box below. Make sure you're sharing this video with all of your friends so they can leave a comment in the comment box below too. Then make sure that you're hitting that like button. It's free, it helps the channel, and we really appreciate it. Then friends, make sure you hit that subscribe button. If you like this content where we bring you positive thoughts about the fandoms you love, then go ahead and subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell so you don't miss a single video we do. Because friends, at the end of the day, you know it and I know it. Fandom is family.